Hi, my name's Dave. I'm an amateur radio operator, general class, and today I'd like to do a brief review of the Alinco VHF FM transceiver DR-235T Mark III. This is a mobile radio. It's a single band radio for the 1.25 meter band. That's the 222 megahertz band. Just picked this radio up about a week ago. It cost me $250 including shipping. The suggested retail on these radios is about $238. For $238, this radio is not too bad. I'd like to go over a few of the functions, positives and negatives, and my first impressions. Couple quick things. Pros. This is a very small radio. You can kind of get an idea how big it is when I put my hand up here. Another pro is it actually has a metal jack. It's not one of those RG250, whatever they are, phone connectors on it. It doesn't have a fan, but it's got these huge heat sinks on it. And I've had it on for several hours at a time. I've had some pretty extensive rag chews on it a couple times, and it seemed like it didn't get warm at all, hardly. So I don't think overheating is an issue with this radio. So let me reach up and turn it on. A couple of negatives. The output power is 25 watts. And it's selectable from 25 and 10 and 5. I don't know if the 25 watt maximum would be considered a drawback for some folks, but for $238, it's still not such a bad deal. There's definitely a negative. I know a lot of hams, we like the buttons and knobs. Well, you'll notice we have a VFO frequency channel selector here, and we've got a volume and power button, but there's no squelch knob. It is fairly easy to set the squelch. There's a button right here labeled SQL. Press the squelch button, adjust the squelch. So it's a lot easier to adjust the squelch on this than some of the cheap handhelds that you've got to go to the main menu and do a bunch of things to change it. A couple of other things about this radio. It comes with a very nice lighted DTMF microphone, and you can lock it and turn off the lights, and it's got a couple of other features. You can do the up and down on the microphone. Another negative that I'd like to point out is a lot of radios now you can select the color of the display. You can do amber, you can do yellow, you can do green. With this Alinco, you're stuck with amber, so that's another negative. Other than that, I can't really think of a whole lot of other negatives to say about this radio. I'd like to get those negatives out front. It's fairly easy to program, and I'm going to attempt to show you how simple it is to program, although like I said, I've only had it a week and I haven't really programmed it a lot. So basically right now we're on memory channel 11, 223.42 megahertz. It's easy to go from VFO to memory, and in fact if you see in channel 7 I've got our one local repeater programmed in. I've got the tone, the offset, I've got low power selected, which again, the power setting, function, and this button right here. Yeah, you got to tick, 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 but it's still, I don't know, I think it's reasonable. It's not like some of the radios where you got to go through 10 memories to change anything. Okay, so if you're going to program a frequency into your radio, it's really pretty simple. You go into VMO or VFO mode, and you select the frequency that you want. And I'm going to put the next simplex frequency in as channel number 12. You press the function key. Oh, wait a minute. Before you do that, you make sure if you have an offset or a tone, any kind of tones, you have all that programmed in. Once you've got everything you want on that channel set in VFO mode, you press function, and now we're pressing memory right, and it didn't do it because I selected a channel that was already in use. So I'm going to try it one more time. I'm going to select function. I'm going to tell it I want channel 12. Now the M is flashing, telling me that's an empty channel. Now I'm going to press memory right, and I'm going to go back to memory mode. So you see what I've managed to do is I've programmed 223.44 in 11 and 12. I overrode 11. So I'm going to go back to VFO. I'm going to go back to 4.2. I'm going to go function. So I'm going to put this in channel 11, and I'm gonna, oops, and I'm gonna memory write. Now let's go back and see. There's 11, there's 12. So I'm a little clunky with this because I haven't played with it much, but you see how easy that was to program a channel? The one thing you have to remember is whatever you have on the display is what it's going to try to program. So if I go into VFO mode with channel 7, which is our repeater, and I press the VFO button, well, it's going to put me back where I was before. So the point is if I had put this setup in VFO, that would be what was in VFO. So if I tried to program another channel, I'd have to make sure and take the tone and the offset off of it, or it would try to include that in the next channel. It sounds complicated, but really it's not that difficult. Let me see if there's anything else I want to highlight. There's a data jack. They sell a couple of different cables for this. They've got one that's got a serial port plug on the end, and they've got one that's got a USB. Alinco did have a programming disc. I don't know if that's still available, and I don't know if Chirp will support this radio or not. One other thing, there is an upgrade. There's a card that you can buy to put in this radio. It runs about $200 retail, that lets you use digital mode on this radio, so you're FM digital instead of FM analog. The only drawback is if I could make a magic world, I would want sideband on this radio, but nobody that I know of right now is making a sideband radio. There are really only 3 or 4 companies selling radios on this band new, and most of them are Chinese manufacturer. Alinco's a Japanese company, and from the reviews that I've read and from everything I've seen so far, I think the Alinco is probably the best value for your money, even though you're going to spend $50 or $60 more than the cheaper radios. One last thing, speakers on the top, and it does come with there's a couple more last things. They have a feature on this thing called a theft alert, or it's like a theft alarm. They've got a cable, and there's a special mode you program in. They've got a cable that plugs into the data jack, and it basically is a closed, here, look at me swooping my hand. It's a closed cable. You basically loop it around your steering wheel if you mount this thing mobile, and you put this thing in alarm mode, and if someone gets in your vehicle and breaks the cable and disconnects it, the radio sounds some sort of alarm. I haven't really played with it much. I've read about it in the book. Okay, let me see. One last thing I was going to try with this. I'm going to see if there's another ham that monitors this frequency just about all the time, and I'm going to see if he's on, so that perhaps you can get an idea of what the quality of the speaker coming back from it. Now granted, I'm going through the repeater, so whatever his signal report is, it basically says, yeah, I'm getting into the repeater okay, but I'd like you to hear the quality of the sound on this radio if we could do that. Oh, there is one other drawback. You see the S meter? It's not very sophisticated. KD0CVG. KD0CVG. This is KD0VUB.
KD0CVG. Good evening, Dave.
Hey Ed, I'm doing that YouTube video to review this new Alinco radio that I'm talking on now, and I think the more important thing was that the folks watching the video can hear you talk and get an idea of what the speaker quality on the audio is on this radio. But if you want to give me a signal check, that'd be really great.
Okay. Well, I got full signal here because I'm probably less than 10 miles away from the repeater. The audio quality is excellent. Not just full quieting, it's good, full, rich sound here on my end. I don't know what else I can tell you other than sound like you're sitting in the room with me.
Alright, thanks Ed. I'm about near the end of the time I wanted to allocate for this video, so I'll call 73 and maybe I'll chat with you later. Thanks, KD0VUB.
Okay, Dave, you have a pleasant evening, and we'll catch you later down the log. We'll pass on our 7.3 also.
So there you have it, the Alinco DR-235T Mark III. One last comment. There was an earlier version of this radio that has had very mediocre reviews. If you are reading reviews online, make sure you're reading the reviews for this radio and not its predecessor. Anyway, hope you enjoy the video. This is KD0VUB Dave 73.